Carl Jung once said that the psyche does not simply forget what matters to it. If someone lingers in your thoughts again and again, it is rarely by accident. For Jung, this constant return of another person to the forefront of your mind was a sign that something in the deeper layers of your being had been touched. He believed that our conscious mind does not choose its obsessions so easily. Instead, what returns to us is often a message from the unconscious which insists on being heard. Jung devoted much of his life to exploring how the unconscious communicates. He noticed that when a face, a name, or even an image seemed to persist in thought, it often carried symbolic weight. The person you cannot stop thinking about may not only be an individual in your external world but also a mirror of something unresolved within you. Perhaps they awaken a memory of childhood affection. Perhaps they bring to the surface a wound that was never healed. Or perhaps they embody qualities you have denied in yourself and now long to reclaim. For Jung, these returning figures were not merely distractions of the mind. They were psychological events. They appeared because the soul had something to say. The unconscious has its own language, and it speaks through dreams, fantasies, sudden obsessions, and people who seem to take up residence in our thoughts. To ignore them is to miss an opportunity for deeper self-understanding. When someone remains fixed in your imagination, Jung would ask what archetype they might represent. Archetypes are patterns of human experience that live inside all of us. The mother, the father, the hero, the lover, the trickster. Each of these is a form the psyche uses to express its hidden truths. The person you cannot forget may carry the image of one of these archetypes for you. They become a doorway to understanding a part of yourself that has long been waiting for acknowledgement. Imagine, for example, that you find yourself constantly thinking of a friend who is bold, fearless, and unapologetic. You might believe you are simply fascinated by their personality. But Jung would suggest that your mind returns to them because they embody your own suppressed courage. They reflect the daring that lives within you but that you have not yet brought into the light. The endless thinking is not only about them. It is about you and the untapped possibility they reveal. There is another layer to this as well. Jung saw that intense preoccupation with another person could also be a sign of projection. Projection happens when qualities of your own psyche are too difficult to accept directly. Instead, you see them magnified in someone else. If you think constantly of someone who seems endlessly kind or endlessly cruel, it may be that these traits exist in you but have been hidden from your awareness. The mind projects them outwards so you can encounter them in another form. The repeated thoughts are the unconscious trying to show you a truth you have avoided. This explains why the people who stay on our mind are not always those we love. Sometimes they are those who hurt us. Sometimes they are those we cannot forgive. Sometimes they are those who embody something we fear. The persistence of their image is not a punishment but an invitation. The psyche is asking us to face what we have left unresolved. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, required us to face these figures directly. By reflecting on why a person will not leave our thoughts, we begin to uncover the parts of ourselves that are incomplete. The work is not to push them away but to ask what message the unconscious is delivering through them. Think of how memory works. Many people pass through your life and vanish from thought. Yet some remain. Their presence endures in the corridors of your imagination even when years have passed. Jung saw this not as chance but as destiny. These recurring presences are tied to your inner development. They are reminders from the deeper mind that your journey is not finished. At times this can feel like a haunting. You may wish to forget, yet the mind does not allow it. Jung would remind us that repression only deepens the problem. The more you try to push away the image of another, the more forcefully it returns. True freedom comes not from rejection but from integration. You must see what this person represents, understand the archetype or the wound they embody, and bring that truth into your awareness. Only then does the mind loosen its grip. This is why someone is always on your mind. It is not simply romance. It is not simply habit. It is the voice of the unconscious insisting that you attend to what you have overlooked. It is the reminder that wholeness requires nothing to be forgotten. Every figure that lingers is a guide disguised as memory. Carl Jung called the unconscious a living reality. To him, it was not dead matter but an active force shaping our thoughts and emotions. The person you cannot stop thinking about is the unconscious speaking in its most insistent form. You are being asked to listen, to understand, and to grow. And so the face that keeps returning is not only a face. It is the symbol of your unfinished story. It is the image that holds a key to the next chapter of your inner life. Jung often wrote that the bonds which dominate our inner world are never accidental. When someone remains fixed in our thoughts, they may not only embody a piece of ourselves but also awaken something ancient that runs through all of human history. Jung called this the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of archetypal patterns shared by all people. Within it lie timeless forms of love, fear, longing, and conflict. The reason a person can take such a hold on your imagination is because they are not only personal to you. They resonate with something larger, something universal. This is why Jung compared these experiences to myths. In ancient stories, mortals became enchanted, cursed, or blessed by encounters with figures who seemed beyond their control. The same thing happens in the modern psyche. To be unable to stop thinking of someone is to be caught in a living myth. The individual before you embodies forces much greater than their own personality. They become the hero, the beloved, the rival, or the shadow in your own unfolding tale. Consider what happens in love at first sight. To the rational mind, it makes little sense that one glance can set a heart ablaze. Yet Jung would point to the unconscious at work. Something in that person has touched a deep archetypal image. You are not only responding to who they are on the surface, but also to the symbolic power they carry for your inner life. They awaken an ancient pattern of connection that lies dormant until the right figure appears. But obsession is not always tender. Sometimes the one who occupies your thoughts is tied to pain. Jung observed how trauma creates psychic knots that demand attention. If someone wronged you deeply, the mind cannot let go until the wound is acknowledged. The repeated return of their image is the unconscious forcing you to face what happened. In this sense, the haunting is a form of healing. By being unable to forget, you are pushed toward confrontation with the very parts of yourself you most want to turn away from. Jung warned that if these unconscious contents are not faced consciously, they begin to rule us from the shadows. To think endlessly of someone is to be gripped by psychic energy that has not been given form. Left unattended, it can distort relationships, feeding illusions or resentments. But when that energy is brought into awareness, it transforms. What once felt like obsession becomes insight. The energy returns to the self, strengthening rather than weakening. There is also the matter of what Jung called the anima and animus, the inner image of the opposite gender that lives in every psyche. For Jung, when a man found himself endlessly preoccupied with a woman, or a woman with a man, it often revealed a projection of these inner figures. The beloved outside was carrying the weight of an inner reality. That is why the thought of them was so magnetic. It was not only about the other person but about the psyche encountering its own hidden counterpart. This explains why the mind can hold on even when the outer relationship fails or never existed at all. The figure remains in thought because what they symbolized within you has not been fully integrated. The task is not simply to win or lose the person in the external world. The deeper task is to draw back the projection, to recognize that what you saw in them was a reflection of your own inner depths. Jung did not see this as a cold dismissal of love but as a profound expansion of it. By realizing that the person who fills your mind has awakened a part of your soul, you begin to understand that your longing points back to yourself. The passion, the grief, the constant replay of their presence all carry the same message. Until you claim the hidden side of your own nature, the psyche will insist on showing it to you through another. This is why for Jung the figures who never leave us are sacred. They are not accidents of memory but messengers of transformation. They guide us toward balance, toward recognition of what is missing, toward the deeper truth of who we are becoming. And yet Jung also knew how heavy this could feel. To be unable to release someone from thought can weigh on the spirit like a chain. He reminded his readers that true freedom is not forgetting but understanding. When you see why a figure has returned again and again, when you see the archetype they carry and the part of you they reveal, the obsession begins to soften. What was once a prison becomes a doorway. So when someone is always on your mind, Jung would say you are standing at a threshold. The unconscious has chosen this figure as its symbol. You may suffer under its weight, or you may accept its message. But either way, it will not leave until the lesson is learned. For Jung, the persistence of another person in your thoughts was not only a private psychological matter but something that could shape the very course of your life. He saw the psyche as a guiding force, one that used symbols and obsessions to steer individuals toward the path of their destiny. To him, there were no accidents in the figures that stayed with you. They appeared because your life story required them. He often wrote that the unconscious arranges experiences with a kind of hidden intelligence. If someone will not leave your mind, it may be because they are tied to a turning point you have not yet reached. The psyche, in its search for wholeness, places signposts along the way. Certain people become those signposts. They carry within them the potential to redirect your journey, to awaken a part of you that would otherwise remain asleep. This is why Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The repeated presence of someone in your imagination is not merely the memory of an encounter. It is the continuation of that transformation inside you. Even long after the physical meeting has ended, the psychological reaction continues. Sometimes these figures become the source of creativity. Jung observed that artists, poets, and musicians often drew their greatest works from the image of a person who haunted them. The muse that lingers in the mind is not only a beloved but a symbol of untapped potential. Their presence channels the energy of the unconscious into creation. In this sense, the obsession is not a curse but a seed of destiny. But there is also a danger. Jung warned that when the energy of the unconscious is projected onto another person, it can become overwhelming. Lives can be derailed in the pursuit of someone who carries your inner image. The unconscious does not care for practicality. It cares for completion. It will insist on its symbols, even at great cost. This is why Jung urged people to bring consciousness into the process. Without awareness, the figure who occupies your mind can dominate your life to destructive ends. With awareness, that same figure becomes a guide to self-discovery. The persistence of these figures also touches what Jung called synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that shape the flow of existence. When someone is always on your mind, you may begin to encounter them in unexpected places. A chance meeting, a message at the exact moment you thought of them, a song that echoes their presence. For Jung, these were not random. They were signs that the unconscious and the outer world were in dialogue, weaving the person into your fate. This is where destiny takes shape. The figure you cannot release may open the door to choices you would never have considered. They may lead you toward a career, a calling, or a transformation of values. They may stand as the spark that forces you to face your deepest fears. Jung believed that every person who stays with us holds a piece of our future. By engaging with the message they bring, we step into alignment with the story that life itself is trying to tell through us. He saw individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, as inseparable from these encounters. The people who dominate your thoughts are not random companions. They are participants in your individuation. Some awaken love, others awaken shadow, still others awaken courage or humility. Each one is placed on the path by the deeper intelligence of the psyche, ensuring that you do not remain half-formed. The difficulty lies in our resistance. We want to choose who matters to us, to control who occupies our inner space. But Jung would say that the unconscious has already chosen. Your task is not to erase the presence but to understand it. To see what role this figure plays in your destiny. To allow their image to teach you what you would not otherwise have learned. So when someone is always on your mind, it is not simply memory, not simply desire, and not simply chance. It is the handwriting of destiny etched into the psyche. It is the life within you demanding that you grow in the only way it knows how, by sending another soul across your path and refusing to let them vanish until the lesson is complete. For Jung, the figure who refuses to leave your thoughts often carries you directly into the realm of the shadow. The shadow is everything about yourself that has been denied, rejected, or buried. It is the forgotten half of the psyche that waits in darkness until the right moment to emerge. Jung taught that when someone lives constantly in your mind, it is often because they embody the very qualities you have cast away from yourself. The shadow is not always sinister. It contains our fears and weaknesses, but it also holds our unlived strengths. A person who fills your imagination may shine with qualities you admire yet feel you cannot express. Their boldness, their tenderness, their honesty may appear so vividly to you because they reflect the potential you have hidden from the world. The mind holds on to them because it knows you need what they represent. At other times, the figure is a mirror of what you most despise. You cannot forget them because they confront you with traits you do not want to admit are also your own. Their cruelty, their arrogance, their selfishness may seem intolerable. Yet Jung would say that this intensity is precisely the proof of projection. You see in them what lies unacknowledged within yourself. The psyche forces you to dwell on their image so that you will face the truth of your own nature. This is why such figures feel so haunting. They do not only belong to the outside world. They are the carriers of your inner shadow. And until the shadow is brought into awareness, it rules you from behind the scenes. Jung believed that ignoring it leads to repetition. The same kind of person returns again and again, each time demanding that you see what has remained unseen. To confront the shadow through another person is painful. It requires humility. You must admit that what disturbs you most about them is also part of your own psyche. Yet Jung saw this confrontation as essential to wholeness. Only by recognizing the shadow can you integrate it, turning its destructive energy into creative power. The persistence of someone in your thoughts is therefore an act of grace disguised as torment. It is the unconscious insisting that you come face to face with yourself. If the figure seems larger than life, it is because they carry more than their own image. They carry your denied self, asking to be seen. Jung described this process as a descent. To integrate the shadow, you must enter the depths of your own psyche where you least want to go. The person who will not leave your mind acts as a guide into those depths. They are like Virgil leading Dante into the underworld. Without them, you might never have found the courage to enter. With them, you are forced to confront what lies beneath. But Jung did not leave it at despair. He knew that within the shadow is also treasure. The qualities you cannot forget in another person may be the very ones that will enrich your life once reclaimed. The obsession softens when you realize that what you long for is already part of you, waiting to be lived. This is why Jung's psychology is not about erasing the figure who lingers but about transforming the relationship to them. The goal is not to exile them from thought but to understand their symbolic role. Once you see that they represent your own shadow, the grip begins to loosen. You are no longer at their mercy. You are learning from them, allowing their presence to illuminate the hidden corners of your being. So the one who occupies your thoughts endlessly is not only an outer figure but an inner teacher. They lead you to the shadow, to the truths you have denied, to the strengths you have left unlived. And through that confrontation they open the path toward becoming whole. For Jung, the end of this journey was never simply about letting go of another person. It was about moving closer to the truth of yourself. The figure who would not leave your thoughts was not a mistake, not a random intrusion, but a messenger leading you to individuation. Individuation was Jung's word for the lifelong process of becoming whole, of reconciling the conscious and unconscious, of living out the fullness of who you are meant to be. When someone occupies your inner world so completely, the psyche is pointing to a task. It is saying that your story cannot move forward until you face what this person represents. Perhaps they draw out love that you have been too afraid to show. Perhaps they mirror wounds you have tried to bury. Perhaps they awaken talents you have ignored. Their presence is a demand that you grow. Jung often compared this process to alchemy. In the alchemical furnace, base metals were subjected to intense heat until they transformed into gold. In the psyche, the repeated image of someone who haunts you is like that heat. It forces you to stay with what is uncomfortable, to endure the fire of longing or resentment, until something purer emerges. The gold of individuation is found only by passing through that inner fire. As this transformation unfolds, the figure loses its grip. You begin to see them not only as an external person but as a symbol of your inner life. The obsession turns into understanding. The constant thoughts begin to quiet. What remains is not torment but integration. You have taken back the projection. You have claimed the qualities they embodied. You have faced the shadow they revealed. In this way, the one who lingered becomes a teacher. They guided you to depths you might never have entered on your own. They carried the archetypes that shaped your destiny. They brought you to the threshold of the shadow. And finally, they returned you to yourself. The wholeness you sought outside is found within. But Jung did not suggest this meant a retreat from human connection. On the contrary, he believed that when you integrate what another has shown you, you become more capable of true relationship. You no longer cling to someone as the carrier of your soul's projections. You can see them more clearly, love them more freely, or let them go without despair. What was once a binding obsession becomes a source of freedom. This is the ultimate meaning of why someone stays on your mind. They remain not because you are weak but because the psyche is strong. It insists that you become whole, and it uses the image of another to show you the way. When you have understood the lesson, when you have integrated the shadow and reclaimed the unlived self, the figure ceases to dominate you. They become part of your story, not its prison. Jung's vision was that life itself conspires to bring us these encounters. The unconscious sends us the very people who will awaken us. Some stay for a season, some for a lifetime, but all who linger in thought are part of the great work of individuation. They are reminders that your soul is alive and striving for completion. So if someone has been always on your mind, Jung would tell you not to despair. Their presence is a summons. It is the unconscious calling you to growth. It is the shadow demanding to be seen. It is your destiny unfolding in symbolic form. When you accept this, the haunting becomes a gift. The figure becomes a guide. And you, step by step, move closer to the wholeness that is your true self.